to all of you. Thank you very much for coming. Just give a few minutes, a few more people I'm adding in. They're all coming in. All right. Once again, thank you for coming in and joining in this webinar. Before we start, some housekeeping matters. Please indicate your title, full name, and organization so that we know who you are. All right. And we have given you an example how to name it. If you're not sure how to do it, in your name at the top, there's 3 dots. If you click on the 3 dots, you'll see somewhere where you can change your name. All right. Not change your name, rename yourself. Please switch on your video and mute your audio during the session, if you can. At the end of each presentation, of this presentation, please unmute if you want to ask any questions, or if you want to put it in the chat, feel free to put in the chat. All right. With that, let's start off with the webinar. Next slide. All right. Thank you. All right. Today we have a topic which is of interest to many NADOs in this region, especially NADOs who are having your RTP and whereabouts, or even your testing pools. The title is Whereabouts, Roles and Responsibilities of NADO Staff. But before we move on, I'd just like to tell you our speaker has been very kind to also touch a little bit on testing. So all of you are also clear with regards to testing, etc. That's the first point I would like to touch on. The second point I'd like to touch on is initially we are supposed to create an Adams profile. Is it profile, not a profile, to a training platform for all of you. However, we are not able to because Adams, due to integration works, the Adams training environment is under maintenance. All right. So after our speaker speaks, we have a practical portion, and please have one other person, preferably the testing coordinator, log into usual as your Adams account. If you wish to, you can log into your Adams account now on a separate computer, on your same computer, and follow the instructions during the webinar. And the reason why we want you to follow the instructions of the webinar is so that you really have a hands-on experience. Now, once you finish that, you will need to delete or retire or cancel the created accounts because these are fictitious, not true athletes. All right. Can we go to the previous slide? With that, I'd like to introduce today's speaker. Today's speaker has a good experience in this area, and the speaker is none other than Mr. Kim Ji-woon. I'll give you a brief from the Korean Anti-Doping Agency. I'll give you some insights. Kim, to call him G for short, and G was actually in the Pyeongchang organizing committee for the 2018 Olympic and Paralympic Games. He was also the Korean Anti-Doping Agency's athlete biological passport manager in 2018. He is also Korean Anti-Doping Agency, which is KADA's testing manager from 2019 until now. He was also involved in the recent Beijing 2022 Paralympic as a doping coordinator. He's presently based in Bonn with the IPC, where he helps the IPC as the doping coordinator. All right. So Guy brings with him a lot of experience, and we are happy to have him here for taking his time off to present. All right. So I think we will start off the presentation. Do we need to close that? And Guy can start his slides. All right. So let's start off. Guy, you can start your presentation. You want to wave your hand, see who you are, where you're from. Yeah, that's Guy. All right. So Guy, you're all yours.
Okay. Okay, hi everyone from Southeast Asia. My name is G. Thanks for introducing me so well, Gobi, and nice to be here. And thanks for having me here. Well, yeah, I was very excited to be here because this is my first time talking to Southeast Asia. So it'll be greater if we can, meet face to face. But due to the COVID and the pandemic things, we can really do that. But it is still a really good opportunity for each of us to have this kind of opportunity together because I believe this will educate us way further than from now on. So, by presenting, hope that this session will be helpful to you guys. Let my presentation begin. Okay, so before I start, I'd like to introduce the contents that we're gonna having for today. We can divide the contents into three major points. The first one is responsibilities and roles of ADOS, maybe that like who we are and what we do in basically. And the whereabouts and testing features for the second major topic. We're going to go through basic concept of doping control and test management and whereabout pool. Something is called registered testing pool, which is RTP. And as Gobi said, we were planning to do the practical use of atoms and go to do the like trials like in real time. But since due to the maintenance problem, we will just go through the slides with me and based on, we're gonna more focus on questions from you guys so you can really understand without really trying. Yeah. Okay, so first, responsibilities and roles of us. Like as an anti-doping organizations, we have responsibilities and roles as you guys probably know. But according to WADA Code 20.5, there are many responsibilities that is listed on the code. However, among those, I just picked 5 characteristics of factors of them, which I think is really important. The first one is independence. Due to our characteristics of organization, we need to maintain our independence. This is because we need to have integrity and clarity of our samples. We can't be affected by certain organizations such as like international federations and IOCs and those kind of like upper organizations, and also by personnel as well. And secondly, this is actually what we we can really say that it is kind of our role as well. We adopt and implement 80 rules and policies. I will explain this more in the rules as well. And also, thirdly, we need to cooperate each other. Since we are all holding our anti-doping program together, there always have chance and needs of opportunities that we need to cooperate each other. For example, like this kind of session and like requesting tests to each other. This is kind of part of it. So WADA recommends us to do that. Also, this is kind of obvious, but I put this because it is so obvious. The first one is we should be against any kinds of ADRVs. And you guys know that there are many kinds of ADRVs stated in WADA code. And this is very basic but simple and obvious thing that we need to do for our responsibility. And also, lastly, education. In the past, we highlighted to catch anti-dopings from athletes before. That's the reason why the testing was quite highlighted issue for all the anti-doping organizations. However, education, concept of education got brought up from recently that it is more important to prevent doping from athletes. Yeah, so WADA recommends us to be authority of education for ourselves, for our regions. Yeah, and let's move on to the roles. Yeah, I believe these documents will explain the most that what we need to do on our anti-doping programs, the code and prohibited lists, and 7 kinds of international standards. And you guys pretty much all know that these international standards are covered and supported by technical documents and various kinds of guidelines. So what we need to do to maintain our anti-doping program is to follow and implement these kind of documents to make sure that all the athletes in the global have the same quality and same standard of anti-doping programs for them. Okay, so today we are going to talk more into about international standards of testing and investigations, because all we have about testing and robots are in this ISTI. But before I do that, I'd like to talk about concept of doping control first, because I believe I see there are many people who've been in this anti-doping area for a long time, like Gobi, but I see some people who is kind of not really familiar with this field. So I probably have to make the level. So yeah, start with the basic concept. Doping control. It is kind of broad concept, but I would simply say it's from the beginning to the end of doping. Yeah, this doping control word covers testing, investigation, robots, and like every kinds that we can think of when we say about anti-doping program. So we just say doping control is all basic concept that we need to know about. These sentences, I kind of got it from the ISTI definition. So you can go into ISTI whenever you have kind of question about what the word really means. So yeah, you can just refer to the sentences. And I'll just introduce ISTI briefly. This is the plan to make effective testing and give some intelligence on what we do. This is not only including in competition, but also out of competition tests, which means all kind of tests that we are having. And this is actually mainly to maintain the integrity and identity of the samples from the collection to the delivery of the lab. And what we can say more about testing is that the testing, we can define this as the way of finding analytical evidence. So we can simply say it is of sample collection and analysis from the lab. Okay, so we've just been through the basic concepts of it, and to give more functional and explanation in detail, from now on I'm going to introduce our KADA testing program. Firstly, this is our department. We have 2 big divisions in KADA, and in operating division we have chief officer, and we have 4 departments: education, testing, and science, which is intelligence in investigations, that includes TUEs as well, and result management. And in this testing, which I am in, we have 2 teams: in competition test team and out of competition test team. In this part, like various organizations have their different structures, but we find it's more efficient for KADA to have IC and OC division in our team, in our department. So we are having this structure now, but some of the other organizations have teams by sport. For example, if I do winter sports, like my teammates do the summer sports, like that. Yeah, the details are quite different from organizations, but that's kind of basic rule. So in this OC team, we have 1 person who's dealing with TDP, test distribution planning, RTP management, which I'm doing, and 2 other people who deals with testing and regarding to ADAMS and IF and ADOS requests. Also, we have 1 APMU manager and 1 INI intelligence investigator who, we cooperate each other internally. Okay, as a NATO, this is pretty much the basic role of KADA. We can I just grabbed this into like 6 major parts. I will start from this TDP. Some of you are not really familiar with this concept, but don't worry, I will go through in detail in next slide. So please just follow me. Okay, TDP is a plan, as I said. So we go into risk assessment, which is kind of a measure to see how the TDP goes. With this, we set priority of our tests, and once we set the priority, this is pretty much a good way of effective testing. And to do that, we cooperate with APM UNI manager internally. We gather a lot for to build up the strategy for the tests. And to do the TDP, we need to follow ISTI and TDSSA, which is a technical document for ISTI, and also I'm gonna explain more in later. And this could be arranged with IFs and ADOs as well, because testing plan um, might get combined with each other. And also, the second circle would be testing, which means that we really actually conduct testing. We do ICOC as well, and urine blood. You guys probably know about a new concept of dry blood spot DBS. We're not doing it now, but we are planning to adopt the method from this year. So we're trying, and we've been using paperless system, which is called Modoc from 2020. So we try to maintain our quality of service as good as well. And we do international and national testing as well, and professional sports as well. And the third circle is RTP and TP management. I just picked it up as one circle because this is how important it is. This is top priority test for the organizations in every organization. So they, like RTP and TP athletes, they have obligation to submit whereabouts so we can test them OOC. And we take this so serious because in KADA, RTP and TP tests are almost like 25% of our total tests. So it's like quarter. So it's a lot of amount. And DCO management, yeah, like personnel things. Yeah, we have DCOs and BCOs, almost like hundreds. And we educate them, and we evaluate them, and we give them accreditation like annually. So like we evaluate the DCOs and BCOs like annually and decide whether to give their accreditation for the next year or not. So our certification is updated annually. If he doesn't pass the evaluation, he or she cannot be the DCO for the next year. So basically, and we educate like almost like 10 times a year. So it's like a monthly, and we have like tests for like it's like literally exam for the DCOs like quarterly, in quarter. So they take the test like 4 times a year. This is to maintain our DCO's quality and meet the newest regulations that is brought up by WADA. And so the fifth circle will be international, and sixth will be national corporations. As I said, we have responsibility to cooperate with each other. So internally, we cooperate with NOC, MPC, NFs, and professional groups to make our test program goes well. I believe this situation is pretty much the same in Asia, all of Asia, because we can we cannot really just go into and do the tests for the athletes. Like for example, especially in competition tests, we always have to cooperate each other for make the program goes happen. So we pretty much focus a lot in internally because they're all we also have like training center which hosts national teams and make like it is kind of hard to get into like the place. So yeah, we always have the corporations each other, and this international cooperation is as well like WADA, IOC, IFs, and NATOs and RADOs as well. Okay, so this is test distribution plan section, and which I want to highlight because this is quite basic but important concept that we need to know when we do the testing programs, because this is what is just like a beginning of testing. So when we talk about the test distribution plan, we can simply say this is a plan for tests for a year, and you can divide into in quarter or monthly periods for any sport and discipline by yourself, but we can just simply say that it is a plan for a test of a year. Yeah. So how we do it is that we set priority between discipline, athletes, and sample and those kind of factors. And this is to test smart and develop our TDP testing plan to be well balanced. And we can do this by gathering new information and do the intelligence for effective testing. So we always have to monitor like performances and situations and some newses from about the athletes. And once we kind of try to make a TDP, we need to do the RA, which is a risk assessment, that concept that I kind of explained at the first place. This RA is the assessment of risk of doping in a sport discipline conducted by your organization regarding planned TDPs. So we could say that this TDP is more like broad factor, and our risk assessment is a specific measure to make the TDP happens. So to do this risk assessment, we need to take care of these factors below. Biological factor first, and this is based on TDSSA, which I will just explain in the next slide. And intelligence, such as history of speak up or performances of athletes, and testing history, like whether he has like abnormal or atypical findings and stuff, and maybe rewards and incentives, like the matches rewards, and like whether they have like Olympics and Paralympics for the year. If there is Olympic and Paralympics on the year, the related sports should be highlighted for the RAs. Also, etc. It is like popularity of the sport in each country, because it's quite different from each country. For example, I believe that cricket is really famous in India. So in India, Indian NATO may pay more attention to the cricket players. Yep. So this is TDSSA. This is called Technical Document for Sport-Specific Analysis. So we can simply say this is documents requiring specific analysis for specific factors that may be expected to enhance performance in specific discipline. So to spread out the explanation, there are some performance enhancing factors in each sport. Like there are many characteristics like strength, endurance, flexibility, equilibrium, and agility. But each sport has different factors, such as sprinters, they need explosive muscle movements. And for the marathon and cycling, they need endurance. And maybe weightlifting, they need strength for that. So this TDSSA is a guideline for specific analysis for each sport discipline. Also, this could be guideline for ABP. Like some nanos and rados who doesn't do the RTP might not be so familiar with this concept, but this ABP is a blood test, and it is kind of obligated for the RTP now, for the endurance sport. So, for example, this TDSSA gives you which sport of athletes should be tested with ABP, basically. And this is recommended by WADA from 2016. So yeah, we always try to comply with this TDSSA when we plan for our tests. So this is pretty much a beginning as well. Okay, with the concept that we have been talking about, this is how we actually make the plan of testing from number 1 to 6. First, we gather information to make the test plan. Like we see like history of atoms, RTP inclusion history, performance, lab reports, and we monitor ABP profile and intelligence managers information. And from the part 1 to 2, we kind of start to make our TDP, test distribution plan, sorry. And from the beginning, we start do the risk assessment of our testing plan as well, because making TDP and do the risk assessment is quite moving back and forth. So we just simply start together, so we don't have to do whole things from the beginning. And we decide like how many RTP athletes and like tests for the sport discipline, which means that how many RTP athletes do we want to put in the specific sport. And once we do that, we try to collaborate with NFs and IFs as well. This is because NFs mostly have more information about the performance of athletes' performance. So we request athlete performance data from like national ranking to NFs. Also, when we have some possibilities of the list of athletes to make them happen in our RTP or not, we kind of share or suggest IFs about it, because good athletes are good in anywhere. So IFs might choose the athlete that we want to choose. And in that case, most likely IF takes the priority. So we need to communicate the IFs about the selection. And also meeting for selection, we gather, as I said at the prior, we gather with APMU and investigation manager to discuss about the like detailed data about it. This is because once we make the plan, there needs to be many data to consider, like the profile of ABP and some intelligence and performance data as well. So we kind of gather around and make this information to be more reliable for our selection, because these RTP and TP athletes especially have special care, which means that we need to be more careful on the selection as well, because all the resources go into the athletes is quite a lot. So once we make the decision, we go with athletes to notify that he or she is included or excluded from the RTP by written notice. And we just do that to the athletes and also NFs because we always need help on setting up this pool of national federations, because it's much easier and faster to contact NF2 athletes rather than we just do it. And also test TDPs. So we kind of build up like more specific and detailed TDP at this moment, because we pretty much know what we do and like how we do and whom to do. So we make the individual TDPs for each athlete, like how many and how much we take, how much we test. Yes, and for the last, according to the verbal filings, we actually take the test. So we share the information about the result with APMU and INI major as well, and discuss the best way further. This is what we do. For example, let's suppose that an athlete has a 5 history of tests, and ABP manager doesn't seem that there's no like suspicious features on his ABP profile. And INI major also suggests that he or she doesn't really have up and down for the performance. In that case, we don't really need to focus on the athlete to test more and more, because it might be a waste of resource. So we just switch onto the other potential athlete for make it effective. So this is kind of sum up for the test strategy. With the TDP that we make and the characteristics of sport and the individuality of athletes, we combine these factors and make strategy. And when we make strategy, if you can see the right box, there are many things that we need to consider about. For example, like how many tests that we need to take, and like urine or blood and standard which is specific analysis, and when and where, if it is like RTP or like, and also we can really decide which kind of test that we need to take for the athletes. For example, like in competition and out of competition, most athletes actually have potential for the out of competition. For example, like bodybuilders, because they tend to make their body clean before when the competition comes out, because they always prefer the possibility of getting tested. So we need to take the characteristics of the sport as well. And for the competition, like condition and schedules of competition should be considered as well. And this is important because like every kind of sport has different condition and situations on the field. So we need to take care of those kind of conditions when we prepare in competition tests as well. And also for out of competitions, there are many kinds of, we can say there are many kinds of OCs. For example, like RTP test, which includes 60-minute time slot or not, or like which one that needs the specific whereabouts. And also what we need to care about is test cycle. We cannot just test on athletes and we test again in a week or some if it is not necessary. And also like ABP inclusion and like additional tests might be needed or some. So we consider these kind of questions to make our strategy. And this is anti-doping task integration system, which we call ADTIS. This is a web-based system developed for efficient data management by KADA. We manage athlete information and test plan and history, and also we manage DCO and BCOs in this system as well. So these two pictures are kind of for example picture of it. The first one is about athlete information. We input like sport, discipline, name, contact info, date of inclusion of RTP or not, like main competition schedule and test history. This test history could be categorized by the years and years. So we basically input like pretty much every information that we have of athletes in this system. And also TDP monitoring. This is we most likely to do with RTP. We actually do the TDP monitoring for the IC and other OOCs as well, but this picture is mainly about RTP because when it comes to athlete-based, we most likely be able to do with RTP athletes because there are many athletes in our nations, and we can really concentrate and we cannot really know every information about the athletes. So yeah, in some cases, it is really good to focus whom to make your focus on in cases. And this is pretty much yearly, and we can see the test program how it goes as well. So since it is top priority, we need to more I want to more talk about the RTPs, which we can in other hand say whereabout pools. This is a pyramidal whereabout pools in KADA. So with risk assessment, we have total 200 athletes in our pool, 144 athletes of RTP and 60 for TP, and other pools on the bottom. And I believe some of you are having RTP and TP, and some of you are having RTP, and some of you are having TPs. So what makes the difference between RTP and TP is basically whether the athlete is infected by Code Article 2.4 of whereabout failures. RTP athletes, since they're the highest priority, they need to maintain full whereabouts. It includes 60-minute time slot for every day, an overnight accommodation, competition schedule, training, and regular activities on ADAMS as well. And also, if there's something like some kind of situations that NATOs need to take care of, for example, like athlete got COVID and or he or she is close contact to the infector and needs to be separated or quarantined, that kind of characteristic has to be in the RTPs whereabouts. So, and also, since the RTP athletes has always possibility of ABP as well, especially in endurance, we take like at least 3 OOC testing a year. Actually, from this year, we take 4 OOC tests for RTP and 1 test for TP. So when it comes to TP athletes, we say this is a not top, but high priority. They provide us limited whereabouts, just like overnight accommodation and stuff, and we take them once a year. And since they don't have responsibility to submit 60-minute time slots, it makes them no applied by Code Article 2.4. So, for example, when you conduct test, when you make an attempt for the test for the athlete, if we fail a 60-minute time slot on RTP athlete, he will be infected by Code Article 2.4, and make it as like unsuccessful attempt, but it is not the case in TP. So that is the basic difference, like between the two pools. And other pools is like just like regular athletes that we don't really have focus on. So they don't get to provide the whereabouts requirements as well. We just focus on them mainly in competition testing. However, if there are some reasons that we need to take him or she in some cases, such as like tip-offs and like ABP profiles, like atypical findings, we go for the athletes with like target testing and like additional tests as well. So it's like always have possibilities. So this is how we manage our RTP tests as well. This is related to wearables as well. Firstly, we give notification, and we need to get the confirmation form from athletes. If you don't get the confirmation from athletes, even if you have unsuccessful attempts by the attempt, it can really work out, because this is the form that athlete conforms that he or she will be in RTP pool. So this is really important to get from the athletes, and this might be challenging to get the form from the athlete, because I will talk about the submission on the second point, but it is really hard to get, always hard to get something from athlete, which is really important. So we always need to pay attention about the getting a form from athlete. Okay, so when it comes to wearable submission, this is the point that when we start monitoring athletes' whereabouts. We monitor whereabouts and see if they submitted or updates. And to do that, we give a reminder to athletes in NFs. And this is quite a challenge every time, because ever since 2019 that I've been in testing department, there has been always some athlete who didn't really submit the athlete by the deadline that we first gave. So to make this happen, we give text message for every RTP and TP athlete on every Friday that he needs to submit or update the whereabouts. And even if it doesn't work, it seems not that working, we contact NF manager directly, so we can, you know, have a more accessibility to the athlete, because he's, as I said, it's always a better way to contact NF for the athlete connection. And we give offline education for RTP. This is just actually to make sure that the RTP athletes know how to submit their whereabouts. We do this in cooperation with NOC. We go into the training center, and NOC gathers the national team members and like RTPs, and so we can have some offline education about it. And also we have online education program on RTP on our website as well, so they can prefer. And also, I'll be probably gonna say in the next slide, but we made a manual for athlete and DCO about ADAMS, like how they can use, how they can submit the whereabouts, and some details about it. So we are helping like athletes to make this happen in like various ways. And also, this is not about athletes on the fourth one, but we give like on and offline education for RTP and senior DCOs. In our DCO pool, we have two kinds of pools in it. First one is RTP, and the other one is senior. The reason why we made RTP pool is that since RTP pool, RTP athletes should be taken more care of, and we need to maintain the quality of RTP tests. We made some RTP DCOs so they can be specialized in RTP tests, and also we made senior pool so they can be the lead DCO most of the time, so to manage the situation on the in competition tests as well, because they always have some things going on in ICs. So yeah, just brought up the two pools that we have. And also, when it comes to planning tests, we first see the TDP for each athlete, and based on whereabouts filing, we consider competition and training as well. For example, because like every athlete has different schedule for themselves, so we need to plan by individually, and also um, there are always possibility of change, so we need to consider that one as well. And that's why we are having consideration about competition and training, and we get this information by NOC, NFs, and news as well. And some of the times we go into the athletes' Facebook or Instagram, so we can get their personal like a personal schedule, like a possibility of going a trip or something. Yeah. And also recommendation of APIM, UN, INI, and coordination with IFs as well. So when it comes to testing, this is the time when we need the monitoring whereabouts the most, because as I said now, we always have possibility of changing whereabouts. So first we made the made the plan as based on the schedule of the athletes, and decide within or without 60-minute time slot. We most likely go within 60-minute time slot for the whereabout testing, but there are some cases that we cannot really approach in the 60-minute time slot, for example, due to the location or like transportation or something. So we decide that one too, and assign testing order to DCO, most likely RTP DCO pools. There are always challenges of these missed tests and wrong whereabouts as well. So we text them every Friday and try to match up with the schedule that we have and the whereabouts that the athletes submitted on the items and other informations as well. And after we do the test, we do the post-test administration, which we review the paperwork and DCF stuff and do the follow-ups. For example, if the target testing is needed, we do it. And if when it comes to when it unsuccessful attempt happens, yeah, we hand it to result management by reviewing the paperwork. Okay, this is RTP test strategy. This is most likely that we care factors that we care, and this is pretty much that I've been talking about right now. So I'll just leave these guys to you, and yeah, to refer when you input this, apply this information on your testing. Some nanos who doesn't do the RTP might think that this will be some kind of concept that is far from you guys, but as I said, this RTP testing is pretty much the highest priority, which means it is highest quality. So once you know how this RTP goes in the in testing aspect, you can pretty much understand all about the out of competition testing as well. So hope this information would give you a further view on testing as well. From now on, I will just get some questions from you guys, if you have.
Thanks, Guy. Anyone has any questions, you can unmute. I think if I could just, there's a question from Irene from Anti-Doping Singapore for TP athletes in KADA. If there's any unsuccessful attempt for OOCT,
yeah.
What does KADA do for such situations? Since Code Article 2.4 does not apply to TP athletes.
Oh yeah. Actually, we have different how do I say, it is punishment doesn't really seem well, but like Yeah. Yeah, okay, so yeah, we have some regular restrictions for the athletes, TP athletes. Like first when they have first missed test, we give them a written notice about it. And
Mhm.
secondly, we give another with INFs. And third, we give warning about that if you get one more missed test, we will include you in RTP pool. And if we have four
Um,
missed tests from TP, we make him as our RTP. So we can have full whereabouts and you know,
thanks, Gia.
yeah,
I think I'm sure everyone will agree here with me.
yeah.
What he presented was actually wonderful, not only touching on whereabouts, but really looking at KADA's testing, uh, the whole testing, the role of a testing department. And I'm sure some of you, some of the NADOs here have sufficient manpower to get everything covered. But some
Mhm.
of you are working with 2 or 3 people, and it can be pretty
Yeah.
challenging. And I think you
Mhm.
can probably look at what the testing department really need to cover and probably even highlight to your authorities of the need for sufficient people. Uh, G, I have got 1 or 2 questions here.
Yeah.
What do you mean by limited whereabouts for the testing pool?
Oh,
When you say limited, do they still put it in the Adams? What do you mean? Yes. What do you mean by
yeah.
limited whereabouts for testing pool? And I like
Oh,
to ask
yeah.
this question because there are a number of countries here who are on the testing ground who may not have a registered testing pool but have a testing pool.
Yeah. Okay. Please refer to the slides that I'm showing now.
Yeah.
So when it comes to say that it is limited, it means that the limitation for ourselves. For example,
Ah,
yeah, like athletes can provide 60-minute time slot for TP athletes, but it is not mandatory for them because it is not. So we can ask them to provide 60-minute time slot, but if they don't do it, we cannot force them as we do with RTP athletes. So will be limited by our side. So um, yeah,
but if
it was
they
description by
don't,
ourselves.
but gee, if they don't put it, you said the first time they don't put it, you give them a warning, second warning, and the third warning, and then you put them in the RTP pool. So, is it mandatory for the testing pool athletes to put their whereabouts? That's my question.
Um, For RTP and TP, yes, but it is quite different quality of information that we can find by the pool. Like RTP, we can have full whereabout information, but for TP athletes, we have some like we might find missing information, but we can't really force them to make it happen. But what in KADA do is that we um, ask TP athletes that it is not mandatory, but we want you to submit the 60-minute time slot as well.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
because yeah, um, by explaining that it will be more helpful for themselves as well, because most athletes don't really want to, get tested by the random time that they don't really expect.
So the next question is, you say one of the challenges is athletes do not update their whereabouts.
Yeah,
And you said you give the text message on WhatsApp every Friday.
yeah.
Now, is this manually done or is this something automatic?
Oh,
The text message is going to them.
you mean manual, like
Yeah,
by
you manually write in your WhatsApp, is it?
Yeah, actually, this is our manual actually, like not recommended by WADA or some, yeah, just like what we think it is efficient for us. So we kind of made a manual for our DP notification
Okay.
to give text message for every Friday.
All right. So
Yeah,
whether they submit or don't submit, you still text them as a
yeah,
reminder.
and also, you can have some alarm message from the atoms when the
Sure.
RTP athletes submit their whereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we cross-check.
And how often, the third question is, how often does a NADO staff look into the atoms on the whereabouts when you say you're monitoring?
Oh, yeah, I missed that information. We like at least a week, once a week. But when it comes to tests, we almost do it like every day because we need to monitor the changes. And another option that we have to not to miss the changes is to getting an alarm message, as I just said. And also, the reason why we made RTP and TP DCO pool is to make them monitor the whereabouts also.
Okay.
So we give them Adam's ID with permission of whereabouts,
Okay.
and make the test order and input the DCO so they can monitor the athletes' whereabouts.
Thank you. There's one more question from Doping Control Authority of Thailand. For OOCT, even for testing pool athletes, the tests have to conduct with unannounced tests. Am I right?
Yeah. It is obvious that we need to do the no advance notice test every time. Yeah, we always do that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mai, for the question and the rest. Any other questions anyone has? If you wish to, you can just unmute yourself and ask the question. All right. It is a very interesting aspect because not many have been following very closely with regards to the whereabouts, some of you. And I think this gives you an idea to put all the system and processes in place, which if you do not have. All right. With that, all right, I think G will take you through quickly the next stage. Of course, we don't have a hands-on here. We actually tried to ask you to create something, but I do not think we have the time for you to have a hands-on. So G will explain what's been done. G, you would like to continue?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, since time has gone, I will just keep do the things. Okay. Some of you know, but some of you might not know. Like this is the basic functions of atoms that we need to know when you try to make the test program. So athlete profile, like before there's two ways, like when you know of athletes Adam's ID and when you don't know about athletes Adam's ID. But before you do that, you need to check whether the athlete has a profile or not, because there are possibility that athlete profile might exist. So if the athlete has tested before, he or she would have the profiles, because all the data regarding doping control should be input on Adams. When you don't know of the athlete's Adams ID, it makes more complicated, but yeah, don't worry, it's not too much. There are two ways. You can use quick search on the left side of Adams, or use the new person button. If you use this button, you can create and find out whether the athlete exists on Adams at the same time. And if athlete doesn't exist, you eventually have to create the athlete profile with this button. So inputting essential data should be made to see or like to make a new person data of athletes. The last first name, gender, date of birth, email, and sport and discipline. Actually, email wasn't really essential data in the past, but you guys probably know that for athletes who have Adam's username, they need to find their password by their email. So we need to put the email as required. So by checking if there's same athletes, if there's some athlete, you can see the pictures like below. It means that 85% that it is the same person that I've just entered the data. So if he is the same person, you can make it clear by comparing this essential data between the athletes. You can just click into this Adams ID button, and this button comes up with this box. This is quite bigger, but I just cut into half. So once you see this athlete profile, which tends to be the same person, you can press work with this button. If it is not, you can create a new athlete profile and save. When you know about Adams ID, Athlete Adams ID, it makes much easier to do it. On Adams ID is always the best way to find athletes. Athlete's ID is an Adams ID is an automatically given ID from Adams system when you save athlete's information on Adams. It is somewhat related to the athlete's name and some numberings. So if you find the athlete, the next step is to check the basic information. Basic information is last name, first name, and the discipline and demographic informations. But after that, you need to check the custody of the athletes, because there are two kinds of athletes: custodianship, whereabouts, and passport. Passport custodianship gives you access to see the passport of athletes, which means ABP passport. ABP. There are two kinds, like steroidal and the hematological. And also, whereabouts custodianship is which is more closer information about the athlete, because if you don't have whereabouts custodianship, you can really not access the basic information about the athlete. And also, even if you don't have any access, like read access of the athlete ID, you may not find, even if they're like availability of athletes. So in that case, you have to go to advanced search to find the existence of athletes. And when it comes to creating user accounts, this is quite different from what we know usually, because when you think of ID, okay, I will just say that if creating athlete profile is the basic step, we will go a little further for today, because since we are going to see how athletes submit their whereabouts and how we monitor the whereabouts, we'll see how we could create user accounts. User account is quite different from Adams ID, because user account is what we most likely know about, like IDs. But since we have ID concept with Adams ID, we don't use Adams ID, we use a username, like account. So when you click with this create user account button, you can see this little box would pop up, and in here you can input username of the athlete. It's like you can make it here, and password and status to be active. This password will be temporary password, because just like this is a temporary password for athlete to just make it login. And to satisfy the condition of this password, you need to maintain combination of one upper and one lower of English, and more numbers, and more than 10 words. So when you do this, you need to make sure that notify the athlete that he or she needs to change the password when he or she logs in. Okay, this is basically like steps how we create athlete user account. Does anyone kind of confused about this step? Okay, I see some questions, so I'll just go through it.
If anyone is confused, please put it down in the chat. Yeah. All right. Go ahead, G.
Yeah, just a little different. Yeah, even if he or she are like twins, you say that just a little different in first name. Yeah, it makes the difference. Yeah, you can notify the difference between the athletes. Yeah, it's okay. And they're all like many people who have same names as well. Yeah, that's why the demographic and like those kind of information is important, because you can go into and see like the difference between others. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see one, so I'll just move forward.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, this is how we create testing order. Yeah. So there are two ways that we can create testing order. First one is that we go this testing order management. This is the first page that when we log into Atoms. Yeah. So when you click it, you can go here. You can search received and issued ammo with this button, and you can add means creating a new testing order with this button. Okay, when you try to create a new testing order, this is the page that you can see you will face when you click this button. So there are 5 things that you need to consider when you make new tests. First one is description of testing order. Since there are a lot of testing orders, and maybe the testing order number will be too long for you to recognize, because it's like 11 or 12 like numbers, you need to make some description of testing order. For example, we make like a KADA OOC, KADA RTP like this and put the location and some data on it, so we can just look into the description and find out what kind of test it is. And then we choose the test type and we choose the period. This is really important to choose the period, because if it is OOC, this input period would allow testee or like assigned DCO or requested testing authority like SSCA would be able to see the whereabouts within this period of the athlete. So you make sure that you need to input these right dates and try to make the TAs and SCAs and RAs correctly. Most likely TA goes with RA, as you know, and probably you need to grant right access to SCA. If you don't, the SCA cannot input Atoms, the testing data on Atoms. So make sure to grant it. As a notification result, this is like the result of test goes to who. So we just put TA and WADA. And actually, if you don't input any information on here, TA and WADA goes directly. So yeah. And this is the bottom page of this one. So this is one page actually. We can input lead DCO, but if it is requesting tests, you don't really need to, because the SCA will be doing it. And status, you should make be issued. Yeah, you should make the status as issued. Other than that, the requested authorities like SCA cannot find this testing order on the Atoms. And after that, we have 2 more steps of making this testing order. We need to add analysis and add instruction if there is. This is the analysis details. They're 1 of urine. So if you don't click anything, it's just like a standard for urine, and you need to input the lab which lab you want to use on the test. And also there are 3 kinds of blood tests: just blood, which have like GHs and like EPOs and stuff, and blood passport. And we have new concept here, tried blood spot. Yeah. And you will see this, apply this analysis to all new athletes who get added to division, or this is optional. If you click it, this like analysis will be automatically goes into the athlete you added. So when it comes to status issued, if you didn't put the status as issued before and you want to make it as issued, like when you want to change the status, you always need to input the reasons for that, but it's not quite critical. So you just, yeah, input the reason why you are changing. And after you get set this testing order, you can put athletes with this button. When you click it, you will see this screen comes up and search for athletes. And as I mentioned, it is always the best way to find the athlete by Adam's ID all the time. So it's better to, yeah, find the athlete's Adam's ID first and input here. In that way, you can just input, you can just make it happen easily. And after that, you just save this testing order and it is done. And also try to, if you want to be more kind to the SEA, you can just give the mission order number to them so they can, you know, go here and search and directly goes into the testing order that you just made. Okay, this is the feature of screen that the athlete actually sees when he logs on to the Atoms. For staffs, it is always important to know pretty much everything on athlete side, because athlete asks us and we need to make an answer for them. And however, what makes this even more important is that this is the most frequently asked questions from the athletes. Not only RTP, but also sport like weightlifting, which IF requires to submit their whereabouts when they attend international games. Okay, so this is the page that the athlete just sees when he or she logs in. And when he or she clicks their whereabouts, and actually this is the way of submitting whereabouts from athletes. And also you can choose some options and change your options by clicking your name. Yeah, so when you click this but my whereabouts, you will see this calendar pops up. And on here, you see this is not submitted. You can click new here from 1 to 2 in order to submit new information about the whereabouts. So when you click the second new, you will see this new addresses pops up. You can label your address name like home, and you add your phone number, which is mandatory, and address in detail, maybe city, and some other details, and additional information which DCO needs to care about, for example, like quarantine. When you save it, it will be featured like this, and you can categorize this information about overnight or like regular activity or some, and for entire quarter. Actually, it's really easy to input all the data at the same time in Atoms, because if you say entire quarter, this input information will be automatically goes into whole quarter. And this is the important feature of 60-minute time slot. And after you checking all the information and you save it, you will see this data is input input on the atoms. And you can check the details by clicking the orange line day by day. And if you want to make a change here, you can just click and edit. And if you want to duplicate your changes from somewhere to somewhere, you can use duplicate this button. And also, what is more important, when you input this data, this is not the finish. You need to use this submit button to finalize your submission. Every time we make a wearable submission from the RTP athletes, there are several athletes who happens to be not submitted their whereabouts because they didn't click the submit button after they input the data. But they think that they submitted the information. So this is the thing that we need to check on our site for the athlete. And probably it'll be better if you emphasize before as well. Okay, since the mobile usage kind of got up, this brought up the WADA to develop an app for this robot submission. Yeah, this is quite similar to those that I just explained to you guys. So I will just we will share the video clip of the Athlete Central app.
The video is not showing.
Pardon?
The video is not showing, so I think
really?
maybe we can give them the link later. I'm not sure why the video is not showing.
Oh.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, can you see?
Yep.
Okay. It's quite a short one, so. Yeah, there was a quick video. Yeah. So I believe that pretty much all of you got the information, like concept of this Athlete Central.
I need to give you
Okay, so this would be okay. Okay, I'll just begin. Yeah, this is how we monitor whereabouts from the athletes. Yeah, we just look through the how the athlete input their whereabouts on atoms. This is how we monitor athletes' whereabouts on atoms. So firstly, we find the athlete with her atoms ID, and we find this from the athlete, and this is we click this whereabouts, and this will lead you to this calendar picture on the right side. Yep, and find the month that you want to monitor. Yeah, it is filtered by quarter, so 3 months by 3 months. So you can see the details of the dates by clicking it. And if he or she is not your nation's athlete, or like you need to check you have some testing order from other organizations, you can simply go to testing order management as well and try to search with the mission testing order numbers, and you can find you can do the same thing to find out the whereabouts of the athlete. Okay, we are getting almost there, so I will just finish this and get the questions at the one hand. So this is the testing center module from Adams. You can use this new monitoring tool to do some like overviews of your TDP and TDP monitoring and TDSSA monitoring. So once you input your TDP data and TDSSA follow-ups on this tool, you will be able to see like your goal and how you're reaching it. So this is a dashboard of testing center modules. So this is just TDP that you input, like samples planned, and this is how you're completing it, and TDP monitoring, like sample out of competition and out of disciplines and out of competition samples collected, and those kind of status 62%. And TDSSA monitoring is that like how you're meeting the TDSSA that you input. So this is a kind of glance look. And the TDP monitoring tool compares your organization's total samples and analysis with those that you're forecasted in the TDP. A graph in a cell means your organization has created a forecast for that sport and discipline, and that number represents the number of sample analysis that are in your DCFs in the period of time. By clicking on the green plus symbol, you will find filters that are also available for your data. You may see results in a custom date range and see only tests which are completed in your DCFs once you click away with test filter. Also, you may filter to locate easily by a sport and discipline as well. You may track your compliance with WADA's TDSSA annual requirements easily by simply entering TDSSA monitoring module. It shows all the TDSSA sport and disciplines which are associated to your organization, and if you are testing has reached the MLA, like minimum level of analysis for the sport and discipline. For each discipline, the blood graphs indicate multiple factors. A green line indicates the percentage of MLA. Red squares indicates your organizations has not yet met the MLA line. This orange diamond indicates your organization has not yet met the optional MLA. And the green circles, the black indicate your organization has attained the MLA for the specific discipline. So it means that it is accomplished. The black in the graph indicates what percentage of your tests in the specific discipline have that specific analysis. All detailed information, including what the actual percentage of MLA, can be viewed by mousing over the blood graph of the specific sport and discipline, like this. Like if you go into here, this kind of box comes out. Okay. I saw the time went so fast, so I kind of hurried on the second session. So I'm not really sure that you guys fully understand. So yeah, before we finish, I'd like to, get some questions from you guys.
Anyone has any question? I think G has actually done a wonderful job, because even if you go to the WADA website, you cannot get some of this information. I'm very sure. All right. I think the first thing I'd like to thank him is the step-by-step approach to whether creating the testing order or whereabouts. All right. And I'm sure, G, I believe it's okay to share your slides,
Yeah.
right? There is
Yeah,
a
of course.
question here. What is the rank other pool? There's a number 1 to 5 in the whereabouts pool. Azani, you can unmute yourself because I'm trying to figure out your question. What is rank other pools? G, can you see that question there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, hi G, hi Mr. Gobi. I'm not sure whether this whereabout management will be teach in this webinar. But then while we key in the whereabout RTP at it, I found there is rank other pools. So how should we rank them into the system? In the whereabout management, sorry, group management.
Is it on the first session?
I'm not sure whether they will be in this slide or maybe after this. I'm not sure.
Oh. Whereabout post number 1.
I think there is not in this slide.
It's not in this slide.
This is for the question for us to key in the RTP athletes.
Oh, I think this one is something about whereabouts, maybe number 1 to 5.
Yeah.
Are you talking about this, right?
No, I'm trying to clarify your question for Azani. What do you mean by rank other pools? Did you find it in a slide or is this?
In the ADAM system.
You found it in the ADAM system, but not in his G slide. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
So G, it's not in your slide. Apparently, it's what is in the Adams. What is rank other pools? Maybe since it's not in your slide, maybe we can take a look at it, and G, probably you can let us know, and then we can reply to everybody on this.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to give my email address at last.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why don't
So can
we get the answer from you? And then there's a question there. Yeah, you have everybody there's his email address. All right. But at the same time, we will take Azani's question, and if you can let us know on this, and then when we communicate with them, we'll reply all.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
right.
I will
There's
try.
Another question: which athlete should submit whereabouts only RTP athletes for TP? Yeah, I think now, Kai, this has been addressed. All right. They don't make it compulsory for the testing pool athletes to reply. Yeah. Mai, you had a question.
Can I share my screen? I will show you the point that Azani is asking.
Sure, Mai. If everybody is open, we love that question. All right. This is what we want. Anybody else have any other question? Now, Kai, again, to answer your question, when we send you the slides as well as the recording, G has answered that question. Registered testing pool is compulsory, but for testing pool, we tell them, but we cannot make it mandatory to them. All right. Yeah. But again, internally, you can have your own policy to get them to indicate so. All right.
Yeah.
Right. All right.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think Mai might also be able to help. Anyone has any other questions? I know it's a long section, but I can tell you something. G has done a wonderful work. All right. It's a step-by-step. When we send you the recording, you can always look back at it. All right. And he also touched on 2 more things which I want to tell you. It is useful to educate your RTP and TP athletes. By looking at this, you know what to put in your slides in your own language, what to educate them, how to do things, etc. Number 1. Number 2, also to try to use the athlete central when they are on the move. Okay, dokie. All right. In the interest of time, we are stopping now. All right. Say again. Yes. Couple of things before we move on. We will send you the survey. Secondly, we have a few other webinars coming soon. We'd like you to take note, especially the bigger NADUs with regards to iNADU. Even the smaller NADUs, do come in and see how iNADU can serve the NADUs and beyond. We also have two more from WADA. Do take note of it. All right. Beyond which, can I say, if you can, is there anything else? This one, she's pointing. Okay.